Let me ask you something. When your kids wake up Christmas morning and tear into those gifts, how many of them will still matter 6 months from now? And here's the harder question. How many of those gifts will actually shape how they think about God, truth, and the world?
Because the gifts under the tree fade fast, but the ideas planted through books can last a lifetime. Today we're talking about how to give gifts that don't just entertain, but actually disciple.
Welcome to Equipped for Impact, the podcast designed to assist Christian parents, leaders, and educators to raise up the next generation to stand firm in their faith and influence the world for Christ. We're your hosts. I'm Nate.
And I'm Lewis.
And we're glad you're here with us today. Today's episode is called Reading the Story. We're talking all about different books and building a library that can cultivate a biblical worldview. And we've had a book list before because you all know, Lewis and I, we love books, don't we, Lewis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are big readers. So we think this is a great time at Christmas time. Maybe some of those books, if you're looking for a last-minute Christmas gift, you can put maybe one of these books under the tree for your kids, or maybe in your stocking, if it's a small enough book, I guess.
Possibly.
Or if you've got a big enough stocking.
Yes.
Do y'all have like big stockings? Or how do you do stockings in your house?
I would say they're average size.
Average size.
Yeah.
I guess that's all average for who?
I guess most people, maybe.
Most people?
Yeah.
I mean, what if you've got really big feet, so you need really big stockings?
That's a good point, yeah. I don't know.
Does Shaq have bigger stockings than everybody else?
He should.
He should, because he has bigger feet.
He does.
And that was the thing growing up. Like, my mom made stockings for all of us.
Oh, okay.
And so there was, when we were born and we've got these and all that. I don't know, for some reason, I'm the youngest. I had a bigger stocking than my brothers. But then when we got stuff on Christmas morning, theirs was like overflowing and mine was all self-contained.
Because it was so big?
I felt like I got gypped.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually. Yeah. Just in my,
in your
6-year-old mind, I thought I was getting gypped. Anyway, that's beside the point. We are off topic now. But getting on here, Lewis, let's start with why books? Like, why are we recommending books here at Christmas time?
Well, when you think about the different gifts that kids get, toys, they're going to break. You're going to outgrow clothes. Your tech is going to be outdated It's probably outdated now.
It's already. You bought it and you haven't even opened the present.
Yeah, like it's outdated the second you open it, right? Yep. But ideas, they're going to shape you. And so stories, they teach our kids what's normal. They learn what's good. They learn what's right. They learn what's heroic. They learn what's worth living for. And if we're not intentionally planting biblical truth through what they read, then here's what you need to know is that our culture is gladly going to plant something else.
Yeah, and so this is just a really good time for us to take that and see how we can, through our gifts, form worldview, because worldview is formed long before kids even know what a worldview is, and so intentionally putting books in their path is one way that we can be intentional about how we're pointing our children in the right direction.
And Nate, that's a great point to make, right? Because worldview is formed through repetition. It's formed through stories. It's formed through what they see celebrated. And books quietly do that work when we aren't even paying attention.
Yeah, and so this is really important, right? We're here coming up to the end of the Advent season, right? Thinking about the incarnation, how the Word became flesh, God stepping into the story He's writing through creation. And so when we think about stories and words that we can learn from, it is a reflection of God, who chose to intentionally, as the author of the story, put Himself in the story to redeem us.
And that's huge because Christianity, it's not just a belief system. I mean, you can reduce it to a belief system, but it's really a story that God wrote into real history. And it's part of our job as parents to help our kids learn how to read the world through that story. We call it the biblical lens, right? The meta narrative, the big story.
Oh, that was a $10 word.
Yes.
Meta narrative.
The meta narrative, the big story of creation, fall, redemption, and some people like to throw in
Restoration.
That's
right? Exactly right.
And so, but it's the story that God's telling and is told through history. And parents, we have a responsibility to help our kids learn how to read the world through that story.
Yeah, and so this is great because Christmas is one of those times where it's really easy to throw a book under the tree.
Yeah,
wrap it first before you throw it under the tree, right? But it's not going to seem out of place, right? If you just go up to your kid in September and you're like, hey, read this book, they're gonna be like, what? But you throw it in there. I think we talked a couple weeks ago about just the consumerism and contentment, and it was in that episode we talked about the something you want, something you need, something to wear, something to read. And so this would be that fourth one. It's really easy. Just put a book under the tree, and especially if it's a good book, along with some fun presents, it'll be well received.
Yep. And the good news is that if you're listening to this on Thursday when we normally release, right, like Christmas is a week away.
Yep, 1 week.
And so you might be thinking like, oh, I don't know what to get my kid, or I want to get him one more gift. Amazon, right? Like, books, you can order a book today, tomorrow, and you have it by Saturday. And so it's here way before Christmas because you still have time. Right?
I'm a fan of the Kindle.
Yeah.
And so then that's really cool because then you can throw in multiple books, all digital form.
Do you read most of your books on Kindle?
It depends.
Okay.
Most of my fiction will be done on Kindle.
Okay.
My fiction read. I think we're going to talk about fiction here in a little bit, but most of my fiction will be Kindle because I can get it from the library, ebooks from the library that go to my Kindle, or Kindle Unlimited, and you can just loan those books out. But then a lot of my serious books I'm going to have physical because I like to write.
You like that? In your hand, pencil, highlighter.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
it.
And parents, so what we're trying to give you here is a built-in discipleship opportunity and put it right into your hands, right? Because whether you realize it or not, every book you give makes a statement about what you value. Every book that you give is shaping your child's imagination. Every book you give trains their thinking. And so you have this built-in discipleship opportunity that this is a great time to start with that.
Yeah. So let's kind of go by age group a little bit. So let's talk about kids, like children and children's books. While they're young, they're still forming their wonder, their big picture view of the world, right? What's going on. I think one really good one to kind of help lay a lot of foundation at the really young children age. It's called the Jesus Storybook Bible. We use this with our kids. And what it does, it's Sally Lloyd Jones. They go through, there's actually an audio version of this, which is great, like on car rides or bedtime stories, if you're into that type of thing. But the Jesus Storybook Bible, it'll go through those big, very common Bible stories, creation, Jonah, David and Goliath, like those types of stories. But it makes it so that every story it shows how all the stories point to Christ.
That's really good.
So we're not reading David and Goliath and saying, you're such a great person, you can go defeat your giant, just believe God, right? It says, no, David is this picture of the future person who's going to come and save us from the giant, whether that's sin or, whatever. So it's putting everything in a Christological context. There's another $10 word for you.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yep.
So what I hear you saying is that the Jesus Storybook Bible, it's going to remind parents and kids, right, that theology doesn't just belong in seminary, right? So they don't have to be like formally trained. They don't have to be studying to be a pastor, right? It actually belongs in the living room, and kids are learning theology at an age-appropriate level.
Yeah. It's a great one because then even, you're talking before they can even read, they're picking up these types of truths about who God is, how Jesus loves us, and why He came in the first place.
That's really good. And I think another great gift book that parents you may want to consider for younger children, it's called The Biggest Story by Kevin DeYoung. And this book helps kids see how the entire Bible fits together into one redemption story centered on Christ. And so that's that meta narrative that we're talking about, that big story of how the Bible and the different stories in the Bible all fit and point to Jesus. And honestly, that's pure worldview formation. Like that's what we want our children to be thinking about, because if we're not careful and they read the Bible disjointed in different stories here, different stories there, they may not ever make the connection that Genesis connects us to Jesus, right? Exodus connects us to Jesus. Even Numbers connects us to Jesus.
Yeah. That's really good. Those are great recommendations there for kids. And some of those books, like the Jesus Storybook Bible, will be kind of on the younger end. It sounds like the biggest story is kind of on the older end of upper elementary, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So let's kind of keep going with that age and move into kind of the tweens, right? Upper elementary, starting middle school. They're still in that awkward stage, so they don't know whether they're a kid or a teenager yet. At this age, your list probably includes both a Squishmallow and some Lululemon. Yeah, like that's kind of the age you're in. Yeah. That's real. That's a real thing.
That's a real thing
in my house right now.
A Squishmallow and
Lululemon. Anyway, the tweens are a great age, and it's so formational because that age, they still have that childlike, faith and trust and, curiosity, but they're mature enough to really start grasping and wrestling with some big truths that you can really throw at them.
And that's when they start asking some real questions, right? And some of those questions might be challenging for us as parents. Look, like I'm in seminary. I studied for the ministry, but sometimes my tween hits me with some questions, and I'm like, let me think about that. Let me go and look it up, and that's when apologetics becomes a gift of confidence for our children. And Nate, there's two books that I think have been popularized over the course of the last several years, really, that helps kids with that. And that's The Case for Christ for Kids and The Case for a Creator for Kids, that's based off of the Lee Strobel story.
Yeah. So Lee Strobel, he's got Case for Christ, Case for Faith, Case for, there's all the Case fors, right? It's a whole series. Yeah. But then they've made these in age-appropriate levels. So kids, teens, whatever. And so if you look at those, like those are great ones that, don't just tell kids what to believe. They show them why. And start laying out that case for, whatever, the resurrection, the creation, different things like that.
There's another series that I would recommend. It's by Ken Ham and by Answers in Genesis, but it's the Answer Books for Kids, and it's a box set. And so there are, I believe, six or seven.
6 or 7.
There are 6 or 7.
When is that? Is that going to die by the time we come back from Thanksgiving or Christmas?
I don't think so. I hope so. I think every age group brings resurrects it. Because it's a big deal. Like it's a big deal in first grade. Like those first graders are going to hold on to.
I haven't heard it as much in high school, so I think it might be just trickling its way out.
Yeah, it's so. And so, but the Answers book for kids, it's Answers in Genesis, right? And so they're addressing questions that your tweens are going to have that may be on complex topics like creation, like dinosaurs, like the Tower of Babel, like the Ice Age, space, right? And so this is going to be a helpful book to help with that. And that's critical, right? Because we don't want our kids borrowing our faith. We want them owning their faith, because our children are going to become adults one day. They may go to a secular non-Christian college, and they will be confronted with ideas that sound very different from what they learned at their school, especially if they attend a Christian school, what they learned at their church and what they're learning at home. And so these books, Case for Christ for Kids, Case for a Creator for Kids, the Answers books, kids set, they're fantastic Christmas gifts because they quietly equip your kids for the questions that they're going to face, maybe even in middle school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are really important, especially at that age. And then as we move into our teen ages, upper middle school into high school, like this is a great time that once they hit there, the questions shift from some of those big questions of just like, is God real? Do I really believe this faith? To some of the even harder ones of like, does God make sense in the real world? Or how does this actually play out? And so you still have those Case for Christ, Case for Faith, like those types of books that they have teen versions, right? But this is where we really start seeing, application of these truths, right? And maybe taking these truths to a deeper level. One that I actually read recently is David Platt, his new book, Don't Hold Back. This is a great book that for your older teens really challenges them to like, what is my purpose in the world? What has God created me to do as a believer, going out and just not holding back? Because, the teenagers, that generation, it's the back end of Gen Z, beginning of Gen Alpha. They're really big into, social justice and, just they want to get behind a cause. And so giving your children, your teenagers, books that show the greatest cause is the gospel, right? And then how does that play out in some of these big topic social justice issues? Poverty. The church should be on the front lines of, the poverty, helping people in poverty and getting them out of poverty, not just because we want to help people, but because that's a picture of the love Christ has for us, right? Yeah. And so books like that, Don't Hold Back, is a great one by David Platt.
And another really good David Platt book is the book Radical. Have you read that one?
I have.
And that one's probably for your older teens. Like that one's probably for like as your teens are in high school, maybe even going into college, or maybe you just kind of facing adulthood, right? And so it's called Radical, taking back your faith from the American dream, but it challenges you to consider with an open heart how we have manipulated the gospel to fit our cultural preferences. And so in that book, Platt shows you actually what Jesus said about his disciples, and then he invites you to believe and obey what you've heard. And so that's really good.
It's a great one of living on mission for Christ, no matter where you are, whether that's actually on the mission field or if you're going out, as into another vocation, a calling that God's called you to, and still using that calling for the gospel. That's a great one. A new one, I've not read it, but I have read a lot of his stuff. J.D. Greer's newest book just came out last month, Everyday Revolutionary.
Oh, okay.
It's very similar, right? We're going out living radical, revolutionary lives just because we're living to share the gospel with people. It's a good one. I've not read it, but everything I've read about it seems to be really good.
And there's a new one that just came out. I actually, I don't know if my daughter will listen to this podcast. So if she does, then it might give away one of her Christmas gifts. But it's one by Paul Tripp. It's called 12 Truths Every Teen Can Trust. And it's core beliefs of the Christian faith that will change your life. And it's not a big book. It's about 184 pages. It's just come out, so it's only available in hardcover. But what it does is it helps teens.
Those are the best kind,
hardcover books. To develop a closer relationship with God through these just brief readings on 12 doctrines and how they connect to the Christian life. And so
that's good.
I got her that. It's actually one of the few gifts that
Spoiler alert.
that I buy. I don't buy a lot of gifts. Normally, my wife does.
Gotcha. One of those.
But this is one where I was like, I think I'm going to get this one.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about maybe even some Christmas themed books. Like these maybe are not books that you would give as Christmas gifts, because then kind of the Christmas season is over. But the Advent devotionals are really good.
Yeah.
And even if you're listening to this, the day it comes out, we're 7 days from Christmas. There's a great one I just finished called Searching for Christmas, again, by J.D. Greer.
Yeah.
It's an easy, short read, but it was written at the end of 2020. So it kind of has that COVID theme of like, we're weary and tired and we need a little Christmas right this very minute. We need a little Christmas now. It's a little throwback to the Christmas carols. Sorry, you're glad I didn't sing. But it's Searching for Christmas. He goes through different names for Jesus in Isaiah and like how they relate to our everyday lives, right? So things like Emmanuel, God with us, or, I am, the everlasting Father, wonderful counselor, Prince of Peace, all of those, he goes name by name. And it's a short read. It may be 100 pages, but that's a good one if, you're on Christmas break and you just want to read that, a chapter a day as a family, that it's real short and easy. So that's a good one you can pick up.
I wish that I could remember the name of one that we use, but it's really cool, and we do it every Christmas, but the way that it works, it's actually called Unwrapping the Greatest Gift. I think that's the name of it. But it's this big book, and it has little boxes, and you open the boxes, and then there's these little ornaments, and then so when you open, it's this pop up, and it pops up into like the shape of a Christmas
calendar.
tree. Yes, So every day we unpack one of the ornaments, and then we read the book, the devotion that corresponds to that ornament. And so like the first ornament is the story of creation, and then the second ornament is the story of the fall. And like the one that we did last night was a passage from the book of Isaiah. And so it was I think it was a light. And so that's the little ornament that we hung on the Christmas tree. And then the story that we read from that had to do with Isaiah, and then it culminates with a prayer. It's called Unwrapping the Greatest Gift, a family celebration of Christmas.
Google for the win. Google for the win there. Well, if you're listening to this, you probably noticed all of these books so far have been nonfiction books, right?
Yeah.
The purpose here is giving, a gift, a book that is really going to help form. It's about formation, forming the hearts of our children, right? But what we don't want you to hear is that we're against fiction. Okay. In fact, like I said earlier, right? I read a lot of fiction. I read it on Kindle, and my fiction reading is like, it's a reset. It's a relaxing time. Like, it's important to read fiction. I've heard people say like, oh, if I'm going to read something that's nonfiction because I don't have time, to deal with whatever. And I listen to that and I'm like, how, like, don't be two-dimensional, right? Give yourself a little three-dimension. It's okay to cut loose. And in fact, I think it's really important to read fiction. There's a quote by C.S. Lewis, right? Chronicles of Narnia. He has all of this talking about his fairy tales. And it was like a journal article that he had written about, how he came up with the Chronicles of Narnia and the different things. And it's not like he was sitting there trying to think of, what cool fairy tales can I come up with? To make a point for this allegory that he wrote in Chronicles of Narnia. He said that it just came to him, and then he realized as he shaped it, it could actually teach a truth through a story. And this is where he talked about, like, sometimes if we are just doing, nonfiction, we're just trying to tell facts, truths, theology, it'll get stale, it'll bounce off. And he actually uses a great phrase where he talks about how a good Christian fictional story is like stealing past watchful dragons, is the phrase he uses.
That's good.
Where it's like, especially as our kids get older, they're going to have these, imaginary in their brain, right? Dragons, they're ready that as soon as you start trying to tell them something, like it's like the dragon, wakes up and it's ready to pounce on that truth to not let it through into their heart, right? But if you're telling the truth through even a fictional story, like Chronicles of Narnia, it can get past that dragon. It's like you're stealing or sneaking past that watchful dragon to let that truth land home in your child's heart.
That's good.
And so don't hear us say, stay away from fiction. In fact, we're saying the exact opposite of that. Yeah. If you want some fiction recommendations, go back to our last book recommendation episode. I'm trying to see what episode number that was. It was in the teens. It was kind of early before last summer that we released that. But there's great ones, right? You've got The Lord of the Rings. You've got Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah. I've mentioned Andrew Peterson's Wing Feather Saga. Yeah. Like those are all really good. I think you are a big fan of Ted Dekker.
Ted Dekker's great.
Right?
And he has children's books, he has teen books, and he has adult books.
So all of those are great if you're looking for a fiction book that also will have some formation built into it to kind of steal past those watchful dragons, to use C.S. Lewis's phrase.
Episode 18.
18, there
episode
we go.
18.
I knew it was in the teens.
Summer reading list.
Good.
And so
Good.
Encourage you to go back and listen to that. And parents, what we want you to know is that we want you to give kids books to read so that they are being formed, right? So whether it's a nonfiction book, some of the ones that we've just mentioned, whether it's one of the Advent books, we're not saying stop giving fun gifts. We're saying stop only giving fun things, right?
Yep.
Like if all they ever read is fiction, then maybe there's some improvement there. But if all they're ever reading is nonfiction, then there's some improvement there. And Jesus was a master storyteller,
right?
And a lot of his stories were parables, and they were fictional. I don't know that every story that Jesus told, he was specifically thinking of a specific person that happened to, but he was connecting that story to an audience, and it trains discernment, it shaped their convictions, and ultimately it taught them to think biblically about the world, and that's what we want for our kids too.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you give a book, right, especially a nonfiction book, and they're like, what is this? That's where you can kind of give them the why behind it,
that's
right?
good, yeah.
It's a gift. They just opened it. It's probably like we used to react when we would get socks at Christmas time, which I love socks now.
It's changed. Me too. I have asked for socks. I love getting socks.
In fact,
Christmas
that's
time.
a tradition in our household. We actually give socks in our stocking every year.
Oh, okay.
So there's different socks. I'm actually wearing some Christmas socks right now. I got those a couple years ago.
My socks actually have French toast on them.
Is that French toast?
So last year...
It is not 10:30 at the time of this recording.
It's not. And I'm not going to eat them either.
Are you going to change your socks after 10:30?
I've never thought about that. Maybe I'm being a hypocrite by wearing French toast socks after 10:30.
There you go. It's not after 10:30.
I got them last year. I think it was last year for my birthday. Somebody gave me a box of breakfast themed socks, and I think there was some irony and humor behind that.
You can only wear these socks before 10:30.
So
okay, gotcha. But like I said, it may give that face that you gave when you got socks for Christmas, but you can explain why you are giving it to him, right? I picked this for you. Hey, we could read this together. This is something to help you grow or help us grow, or I really want you to be strong in your faith. Just letting them know why you gave the book is going to go a long way.
And then follow up, right? Read it with them. So maybe you buy 2 copies of the book and you read it with them. You ask them questions, talk about what they're learning. Books work best inside relationships, which is why book clubs tend to be so popular, right? Because you read it with somebody.
Yeah. And so that's really good. Like, don't just give it to them, right? Make sure they read it, follow up with them, and let them know why. So as we kind of wrap up this book recommendation episode, Lewis, what takeaways or encouragement do you have for the parents listening to this?
Yeah, parents, let me challenge you with this, right? Before Christmas morning comes, before all the gifts are unwrapped, choose just one gift that is going to outlast the batteries, right? Find that one gift.
And don't forget to order batteries. I made that mistake a couple years ago.
That happens, right? Find that one gift that's going to outlast the trends. Find that one gift that's going to plant something eternal. Put a book under the tree that helps your child think, to believe, and to live biblically, because the gifts under the tree, they're temporary, right? They're going to outgrow that Lululemon. Right? They're going to eventually mess up that Squishmallow. But the seeds...
I think Squishmallows are eternal.
Are they?
I'm pretty sure.
But the seeds that are planted through truth are eternal.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So thank you all for listening today to Equipped for Impact. If this episode encouraged you, share it with another parent who could use this list of recommendations, and maybe they can find some quick deals that they can get 2-day shipping from Amazon to get under their tree this year. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episodes as we continue and wrap up our Christmas. And until then, keep leading the next generation to stand firm in their faith and influence the world for Christ.